Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. The calm before the storm. In the distant reaches of the Andromeda galaxy, nestled on the planet of Sci-Fi, a serene colony of humans thrived under the dual suns. Sci-Fi was a place of tranquility, a stark contrast to the chaotic world humanity left behind on Earth. It was a utopia in every sense: lush landscapes, harmonious communities, and a society that had learned from its past mistakes. The Typhorans, as the colonists were called, had spent decades perfecting their peaceful way of life. Conflict was almost unheard of, and anger was a foreign concept. Commander Elena Vasquez, a seasoned veteran of the United Earth military, had retired to Sci-Fi after years of service. Her life on Earth had been filled with war, bloodshed, and loss. Sci-Fi offered her the peace she desperately sought, a chance to escape the haunting memories of battles fought on far-off worlds. She had become a respected leader in the colony, her military discipline tempered by the calm of her new home. One evening, while Elena was enjoying a quiet sunset on the veranda of her home, she received a message on her personal communicator. It was marked with the highest level of urgency, a rarity in Sci-Fi. The sender was Admiral Pierce, a figure from her past she hadn't expected to hear from again. "Elena, I need you to come back." The message read. "Something is happening out here. The fleet is in disarray. We need someone like you, someone who can lead." Elena's heart sank. She had sworn to leave that life behind, but the gravity of the message pulled her in. There was an unspoken dread in Pierce's words that she couldn't ignore. Sci-Fi had made her soft, she thought, too comfortable in its idyllic setting. But the soldier in her, the part that had faced the worst of humanity's struggles, refused to be silenced. She knew she had to go. The next morning, Elena packed her things and made her way to the colony's spaceport. As she boarded the shuttle that would take her to the fleet's headquarters, a sense of foreboding settled in her chest. The tranquility of Sci-Fi seemed a distant memory as the stars stretched before her, a vast unknown full of danger and intrigue. When she arrived at the fleet's command center, the atmosphere was tense. Soldiers and officers moved with a hurried purpose, their faces etched with worry. Admiral Pierce greeted her with a grim expression. "Elena, it's worse than I feared," he said, leading her to the briefing room. "We've encountered a species we know nothing about. They appeared out of nowhere, and they're unlike anything we've ever faced." Pierce activated a holographic display, showing a fleet of alien ships, sleek, dark, and menacing. "They call themselves the Archon," he continued. "They're technologically advanced, and they've been picking off our ships one by one. We've tried diplomacy, but they seem to have no interest in talking." Elena studied the hologram, her mind racing with possibilities. "What do they want?" "We don't know," Pierce admitted. "But what we do know is that they're hostile. They've attacked without provocation, and their tactics suggest they're testing us, probing our defenses." "Have we sent scouts?" Elena asked. "Yes, but none have returned." Elena felt a cold knot of fear tighten in her stomach. "We need to gather intelligence. We can't fight an enemy we know nothing about." Pierce nodded. "That's why I called you. You're the best strategist we have. If anyone can figure out what they're after, it's you." Elena agreed to lead a reconnaissance mission, despite the risks. As she prepared her team, the weight of the task ahead bore down on her. This was no ordinary enemy, and the stakes were higher than they had ever been. She could feel it in her bones. Something was coming, something that would challenge not just her skills, but the very core of what it meant to be human. The mission began as a routine recon, but it quickly became apparent that the Archon were more than just an alien threat. They were cunning, always a step ahead, and they seemed to be studying the humans as much as the humans were studying them. As they ventured deeper into Archon territory, Elena's team stumbled upon something unexpected. A derelict Archon vessel, abandoned but still operational. The ship was unlike anything they had seen before, with strange symbols and an eerie, pulsating energy coursing through its walls. Alina knew this could be the key to understanding their enemy, but it also felt like a trap. Her instincts were proven right when, upon boarding the ship, the team was ambushed by a group of Arkan soldiers. They fought with a precision and ferocity that took the humans by surprise. Alina barely managed to rally her team, and they retreated with heavy losses. As they fled the ship, she caught a glimpse of something in the shadows. An Arkan figure, larger and more imposing than the others, watching her with cold, calculating eyes. The encounter left Alina shaken. The Arkan weren't just an advanced species, they were predators, and humans were their prey. But more than that, there was something familiar in the way they fought, a method to their madness that hinted at a deeper, more sinister connection. As they returned to the fleet, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that the Arkan were not just enemies, but harbingers of something much worse. The peace of Typhera felt like a distant dream, and she realized with a heavy heart that this war was only just beginning. Shadows of war. Alina couldn't sleep after the mission. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the cold, calculating gaze of the Arkan figure watching her, analyzing her every move. It wasn't just the loss of her team members that haunted her, but the unsettling feeling that the Arkan knew more about humanity than they were letting on. The fleet's scientists had managed to extract some data from the derelict Arkan ship. The symbols they found were unlike any known language, but the ship's architecture suggested it was ancient, far older than any of the civilizations humanity had encountered. The energy readings were also off the charts, indicating that the Arkan had access to a power source that defied human understanding. Alina pored over the data with a growing sense of dread. The more she learned, the more she realized how outmatched they were. The Arkan weren't just a threat. They were a force of nature, and humanity was standing in their way. Admiral Pierce convened an emergency meeting with the fleet's top strategists. The mood in the room was somber, the air thick with tension. As Alina took her seat, she noticed that the other officers looked just as shaken as she felt. "We're in deep trouble," Pierce began, his voice heavy with concern. "The Arkan have been systematically dismantling our defenses. We've lost contact with 3 more outposts since the recon mission." A murmur of unease spread through the room. Alina could feel the fear emanating from the other officers, a palpable sense of impending doom. "What's our next move?" one of the strategists asked. Pierce turned to Alina. "Commander Vasquez, you've faced them directly. What do you suggest?" Alina took a deep breath. "We need to find out what they want. They're not just attacking us randomly. There's a purpose to their actions, and we need to figure out what it is." Another strategist shook his head. "We've tried communicating with them. They don't respond to our hails." "I'm not talking about diplomacy," Alina replied, her voice firm. "I'm talking about getting inside their heads. We need to understand their motives, their tactics. We need to think like them." A silence fell over the room as the officers considered her words. Finally, Pierce nodded. "I agree. We need to gather more intelligence, and we need to do it quickly. Commander Vasquez, you have my authorization to lead another mission. But this time, we're going in with full force." Alina knew the risks, but she also knew they had no other choice. The Arkan were closing in, and time was running out. The mission was their best shot at gaining the upper hand, but it would be dangerous, possibly a one-way trip. As she prepared her team, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But she also knew that hesitation would only give the Arkan more time to strike. She briefed her team with a steely resolve, masking her own fears with the confidence of a seasoned leader. The mission began with a coordinated strike on an Arkan outpost. The humans moved with military precision, taking out the alien defenses with a series of well-placed charges. But as they pushed deeper into the outpost, they encountered resistance unlike anything they had faced before. The Arkan soldiers were relentless, their tactics brutal and efficient. They seemed to anticipate the humans' every move, countering their strategies with terrifying accuracy. Alina's team fought valiantly, but the Archean were always one step ahead. In the heat of battle, Alina found herself face to face with the Archean figure she had seen on the derelict ship. It towered over her, its dark eyes glinting with a malevolent intelligence. There was something almost human in its gaze, a cold, calculating awareness that sent a chill down her spine. The figure spoke in a language Alina didn't understand, its voice low and guttural. But the meaning was clear. It was challenging her, testing her resolve. She knew then that this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a test, a twisted game in which the Archean were the hunters and humanity the hunted. With a surge of adrenaline, Alina attacked, pouring all her strength into the fight. The Archean was faster, stronger, but Alina's determination was unyielding. The battle was fierce, each blow a clash of wills as much as a clash of weapons. Finally, with a well-timed strike, Alina managed to wound the Archean. It staggered back, a look of surprise crossing its alien features. But before she could press her advantage, the Archean activated a device on its wrist, and a blinding light engulfed the outpost. When the light faded, the Archean were gone, along with the data they had fought so hard to retrieve. The outpost lay in ruins, and Alina's team was battered but alive. But the mission had failed. They had gained nothing, and the Archean had slipped through their fingers once again. As they returned to the fleet, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that the Archean were toying with them, leading them into a trap of their own making. They were no closer to understanding their enemy, and the clock was ticking. The war had begun, and humanity was on the brink of annihilation. The wrath of humanity. The fleet was in disarray. The failed mission had sown seeds of doubt among the ranks, and the Archean attacks were becoming more frequent and more devastating. Reports of entire colonies being wiped out poured in, and the once confident human forces were now gripped by fear and uncertainty. Alina, however, was not ready to give up. The encounter with the Archean figure had ignited something deep within her, a burning anger, a primal fury that she hadn't felt in years. She had seen too much, lost too many friends to let the Archean continue their rampage unchallenged. Admiral Pierce called for a council of war, gathering the remaining fleet commanders to discuss their next move. The atmosphere in the command center was tense, the weight of impending doom pressing down on everyone present. "We can't keep fighting like this," one of the commanders said, his voice tinged with despair. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and we have no idea what their endgame is. We have to keep fighting." Alina interjected, her voice sharp with determination. "We can't let them win." "But how?" another commander asked. "Every time we engage them, they slip away. It's like they're toying with us." Alina clenched her fists, the anger bubbling to the surface. "We need to stop playing by their rules. The Archean think they can outmaneuver us, that they're smarter, more advanced. But they've underestimated us. They don't know what humans are capable of when we're pushed to the edge." Pierce nodded, a steely resolve in his eyes. "You're right, Alina. We need to turn the tables. If the Archean want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The fleet was mobilized for a full-scale assault on the Archean stronghold. It was a bold move, a last-ditch effort to take the fight to the enemy and end the war before humanity was wiped out. The plan was simple: hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't give them a chance to regroup. As the fleet prepared for battle, Alina felt a sense of calm wash over her. The fear and uncertainty were gone, replaced by a fierce determination to see this through to the end. She knew the risks, knew that they might not all make it back, but she was ready to fight with everything she had. The battle began with a coordinated strike on the Archean defenses. The human fleet moved with a precision born of desperation, unleashing a barrage of firepower that shook the very foundations of the Archean stronghold. The alien ships responded in kind, and soon the space around the planet was a maelstrom of lasers and explosions. Alina led her squadron into the heart of the battle, her fighter weaving through the chaos with deadly grace. The Arkan ships were fast and agile, but Elena was faster, her reflexes honed by years of combat. She took out one enemy ship after another, her anger fueling her every move. As the battle raged on, Elena's squadron broke through the Arkan lines and made their way to the stronghold's central command center. It was heavily guarded, but the humans fought with a ferocity that caught the Arkan off guard. They pushed forward, taking out the defenses one by one, until they finally reached the command center. Inside, they found the Arkan leader, the same figure Elena had encountered before. It was surrounded by its elite guard, their weapons trained on the humans. But Elena didn't hesitate. She charged forward, her squadron at her back, and a fierce battle ensued. The Arkan fought with the same brutal efficiency as before, but this time the humans were prepared. They fought with a coordinated fury, each move calculated to exploit the Arkan's weaknesses. Elena's anger burned brighter than ever, driving her forward with a relentless energy. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last of the Arkan guards fell. Elena stood before the Arkan leader, her weapon trained on its chest. The alien looked at her with those same cold, calculating eyes, but there was something else there now, something that looked almost like fear. "You've underestimated us," Elena said, her voice low and dangerous. "You thought you could destroy us, but you've only made us stronger." The Arkan leader made a low guttural sound, and Elena realized it was laughing. "You are strong," it said in heavily accented English. "Stronger than we anticipated. But it is too late. The others will come. They will finish what we have started." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Others? What do you mean?" But before the Arkan could answer, a blinding light filled the room. Elena shielded her eyes, and when the light faded, the Arkan leader was gone, leaving only a charred mark on the floor where it had stood. The humans had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The human spirit. The fleet returned to Sci-Fi victorious, but the mood was far from celebratory. The Arkan leader's words echoed in Elena's mind. The others will come. The battle had been won, but it had only been a skirmish in a much larger war, a war that humanity was not prepared for. Admiral Pierce convened a final meeting with the fleet's leaders. The victory had given them a brief respite, but they all knew that it wouldn't last. The Arkan had underestimated them, but they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. "We need to prepare," Pierce said, his voice grim. "The Arkan were just the beginning. We don't know who these others are, but we can't afford to be caught off guard." Elena nodded. "We need to fortify our defenses, gather intelligence, and prepare for the worst. But more than that, we need to unite. The Arkan thought they could divide us, weaken us. But they were wrong. We're stronger together, and that's what we need to focus on." The fleet's leaders agreed, and preparations began in earnest. But even as they worked to strengthen their defenses, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Arkan had been a formidable enemy, but the thought of an even greater threat lurking in the shadows was almost too much to bear. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to change. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped the fleet began to fade, replaced by a sense of determination, of resolve. The humans had been tested, pushed to the brink, but they had emerged stronger, more united than ever before. Elena watched as the fleet's soldiers trained, their movements precise and disciplined. She saw the engineers working tirelessly to improve their ships, the scientists poring over data, searching for any clue that might give them an edge. And she realized that this was what the Arkan had failed to understand. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons, but its spirit. The Arkan had tried to break them, but instead they had forged them into something stronger, something more resilient. The humans had faced extinction and had come out the other side with a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to survive no matter what. Elena knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that the war was far from over, but she also knew that they would face whatever came next with the same fierce resolve that had carried them this far. They had learned from their mistakes, had grown stronger in the face of adversity, and they were ready for whatever the universe threw at them. As she stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the stars stretch out before her, Alina felt a sense of peace. The anger that had driven her through the battles had given way to something else. Hope. Hope that humanity would endure, that they would rise to the challenge, no matter how great. The Archon had thought they could destroy humanity, but they had only made them stronger. And as Alina looked out at the endless expanse of space, she knew that whatever came next, humanity would be ready. Because when humans get angry, they don't just fight, they survive. And that, Alina realized, was the greatest lesson of all. Lesson: strength doesn't come from avoiding conflict or suppressing anger. It comes from facing challenges head-on, learning from adversity, and uniting in the face of a common threat. When humans are pushed to the brink, their true power is revealed, not just in their technology or their weapons, but in their indomitable spirit, their capacity to endure and grow stronger in the face of overwhelming odds.